So I'm going to go over the top 5 business mistakes that new entrepreneurs make when starting up their own online business. Now, I'm Henriques, an online startup coach and entrepreneur, and I'm going to go through these 5 things. And these 5 things, it's not just me observing from other people. I've done all these things myself. Okay, so I know that reflecting back on things, know that these are the things that do not work. Now, the first thing I'll go into is lots of people do these 5 things for a reason, and that's because they think that, well, this is what I think a business looks like. So I'm going to do these things, try and copy them, and then that should make me a success. But you're wrong. So I'll go into them about what the 5 things are and what you can do to overcome them and make sure you're not making the same mistakes that I did and that I see literally tons of other people doing every single day. Right, so the first one is call answering services and outsourcing. Now, the problem with that is, I started my own business when I was working full-time in the police, right? Now, I could have gone straight to call answering services and outsourcing some tasks. In fact, I did, but I didn't need to. So I went straight to a call answering service before I was getting any calls. Does it make sense? No. Now, the problem with that is if you don't have calls coming in, but you're paying for a service, what sense is there having a call answering service? So before you've even gone ahead and started getting those leads coming in, getting phone calls, you've got to make it become a problem first. Okay. So if you make it become a problem when it is actually a problem, so when you've got calls coming in and you find that you've got missed calls and you've got voicemails that are coming in and stuff like that, then maybe you need a call answering service. But until that happens, you don't. Okay. So that's mistake number 1 that I see people do. The second one is branding, stationery, promotional materials, going out there spending literally, in cases, thousands and thousands of pounds on your branding because you think somehow that's going to magically do things for you. People will go out and buy loads of stationery and promotional materials with their logo on because it looks fantastic, and they'll get these business cards that nobody will ever use. Right? Trust me, I've done it. I think one of the startup businesses I had spent £6,000 on effectively what ended up being a logo and someone choosing colours for me. Right? It doesn't make any sense. You don't need to. You could go on canva.com, literally design it yourself. Your logo doesn't matter that much. Okay, if you're wasting your time on building up the brand, okay, before you've even made your first sales, obviously you need something there, but you don't need to be spending endless amounts of time and money on doing that. Okay, and all the stationery and the promo materials, guys and girls, you just don't need it. Forget about it. Do it another time. Do it later down the line. If you're going to some massive trade event where you need to give them out, then fair enough. But until then, you don't need it. Okay, the next thing that I see people doing, loans and overdrafts. Now, it's most likely that your business idea, particularly if it's an online business, probably you do not need a loan or an overdraft to be starting up your business. Okay, now there are cases, certain tech, for example, but even then, think about, do you want to be getting a loan or do you want to, test your idea first of all? Test your idea, get some investors, get it in front of investors and see what they think. If they think it's a great idea, they're going to stick money in it early doors because they get a nice chunk of your business very early doors, but then they'll also help you with it. So think about, do you really need loans and overdrafts? I remember when I started my cleaning company when I was in the police, I put in a load of my money to buy the franchise licenses, because it's a franchise, and also I ended up taking a loan as well, and then also spent stuff on, like I've mentioned before, like stationery and promotional materials and branding stuff and just this random crap that you convince yourself that you need as an entrepreneur and you just don't need it. Chances are you don't need it. Now, there's a way you can deal with that. You can do something called the SWOT techniques. That's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Anything you're thinking about, think about why you really need it. Think about the strengths in what it is, the weaknesses in what it is. What opportunity is it going to bring to you? Okay. And by not having it, what's the threat to you? You know, I convinced myself I needed this 100 and something pound wall map that was on my wall. I don't know why I was pointing up there. It was on a wall that's probably 200 miles away from here, or 150 miles away from here in Essex, when I used to live over there. But yeah, I convinced myself of this wall map. Now, I had this wall map up on my wall that was of no use to me whatsoever because I use Google Maps. I use Google Maps. Obviously, I was going to use Google Maps. I didn't need a stupid wall map. You know, but it's things like that. You can literally, it's so easy when you've got too much access to too much money, you start throwing money at problems. And quite often that's not the solution. All right. The next thing, number 4, is getting an office and staff. Now, getting an office and staff, they're both very expensive things. And if you're running an online business, 9 times out of 10, you do not need an office or staff. It might make you feel better. It might make you feel like you're playing at the game of business, okay? But you don't need them, right? Most likely, you just don't need them. Work online. People have proven the fact that it can be done remotely. Even gigantic companies, okay, using the same tools, the exact same tools that you can access for free in most cases, to be able to manage teams of tens of thousands. Deloitte have recently announced that they're going to take a permanent stance where people can work from home permanently. Okay, so all these massive offices in London, God knows what's going to happen with them. You know, there's talks of people redeveloping them and stuff. So getting an office and staff, think about, what do you need the staff for? Okay, if you really think you need a member of staff for something, think about what are the tasks, because if you're not already overloaded with stuff, if you're not literally doing important tasks, revenue generating tasks, right? Don't get yourself in a position where you're doing all these nonsense stuff where, you know, busy work, but it's not actually getting you anything. You know, you're doing everything to avoid actually going out there and getting your customers, because that's what a lot of people do and they don't realize it. Okay. So if you're thinking about taking on staff, think about, well, do you actually need to hire staff here? Could you get a virtual assistant for a couple of hours a day, a couple of hours a week, even if you need one? Outsource it to another company. I know I mentioned about outsourcing, but if you really need staff because they're so expensive, you know, especially when you're starting out, it's a real big expense for you and it's a massive commitment for you, okay, to get them. Whereas if you outsource to like a VA or get a third-party company to take on whatever the small tasks are that you really need, that maybe you're not expert at, that you need the support with, go on Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. Okay, you can pretty much find any type of freelancer that you could ever need out there who will do the work for you. Okay, whatever it is you need doing. Now, the 5th thing, the most important, I think, for online businesses is, and I see it a lot, and it's a shame, it's people spending their entire startup fund on getting a super flashy website. Okay, so they spent their entire startup fund on getting a super flashy website and think that somehow, because you've gone and paid for all your branding, which was number 2. Now you've gone and paid for this really fancy, you know, absolutely bells and whistles everywhere website, that is going to suddenly drive a load of customers to you. And it's not. Let me just tell you that it's not going to happen. Okay, so you're not just going to have people magically come just because your website looks nice. You'd have a very expensive site and no customers. Okay, it's a complete backwards thinking. You know, you can set up a website very inexpensively. Okay, if you don't have the technical skills to do it, go on somewhere like Fiverr.com. Okay, there's plenty of web design agencies who can do it. You know, you could give you a really good site for, you know, 500 quid, maybe up to a couple of grand if you really needed it, or just learn to do it yourself. It depends on you and your situation. Okay, and then the next thing within the website, sort of very much linked to it, is They'll spend, 5 grand, 10 grand on this flashy website, and they've spent all this money on the branding and stuff. And they're talking about they want this, they want this sustainable business. They want to quit their job, within the next few months because from all the business they're going to get in and stuff like that. And then what they'll cheap out on is the most important thing, is the marketing side. It's the most important thing, guys. They'll go and try and do Facebook ads themselves. They'll click on the boost post button. They'll put up a post on Facebook and click on the boost post button and hope to hell that does something. And yeah, it does do something. It gives Facebook more of your money. That's for sure. Or they'll go and do a DIY Google ad campaign and spend a couple of £100 on that and say, oh, it doesn't work, instead of getting the professionals in to do that job. And what they won't do, most importantly, which I can tell you is my number one thing that has helped my businesses to grow, is implementing SEO, the search engine optimization, which is the thing that will get you and your website on top of Google, okay, on top of the page one of Google for whatever it is that your business does and all the keywords surrounding that, okay? They neglect that as the most important thing. Now, what you tend to find is that further down the line, a year down the line, when they've seen they're not getting any traction, I've spoke to people where I've spoke to them a year before, they've been going for a year, they've then realized that they needed SEO because it's not going to magically come, guys. Even though they spent tons of money on this website, it's not going to magically bring traffic. And then, even then, I remember this one client particularly, one client for them would be worth about £20,000, but they weren't prepared to spend like 500 quid a month on SEO, which could have driven, thousands of people to their site. I don't understand it, but it's something that happens so often. And if you don't want to be one of them people that spend all this money on a site and spend all this time starting up your businesses, then think about, do you really need these co-answering and outsourcing services? Do you really need to spend money on your branding, your stationery? Do you need all these loans? Do you need the office and staff? Do you need the expensive website? What you do need is a okay website that get professionals to actually, if you don't know how to do it properly, if you don't know how to set up a proper Facebook campaign or a proper Google Ads campaign, which 9 times out of 10, you probably don't. If you haven't done it before, then you definitely don't. Okay, it's super complicated. That's why these agencies cost so much money. And if you're not implementing SEO, that to me is just telling me that you don't intend for this business to last. Okay, because that's the only way for 99.99999% of businesses out there that you are going to get sustainable amounts of traffic visiting your website that are going to start paying you money. Okay, so that's really it. That's my top 5 things. And really, all you need to do, guys and girls out there, you entrepreneurs that are trying to start up online, is learn how to sell. Spend more of your time on actually getting out there, getting leads, whether it's LinkedIn you're going on, whether it's through social media engagement, you're talking on other people's posts, whether you're actually going outside of your house, or if you're allowed, if it's not in lockdown, and go and actually knock on people's doors. When I say people's doors, if you're selling business to business stuff, like if you, I don't know, what do you do? If you're a cleaning company, in London, go and, knock on businesses' doors. You need a cleaner. Do whatever it takes for you to get your sales in. And overall, you need a realistic plan. Now, one of the things that you can do to create a realistic plan is just do a business plan. Sounds simple, right? But tons of people don't do it. And that will go through everything that you need to start up, and it would help you to look at things on paper, the things actually stack up financially, particularly. So if they don't, then you need to go back to the drawing board and rejig your plan, or just get a different idea completely. So if you're going to take away anything today, just really think about what you actually need to start up your own online business, rather than thinking about the things that look like they look like what it really needs to start up, rather than trying to copy what you think a business looks like. Okay. So I'm Aaron Henriques. If you want to learn more, you can follow me on Instagram. That's Aaron Henry on Instagram. That's AARONHENRAY on Instagram. Feel free to DM me if you have any questions about like starting out, or if you want further explanation on any of the 5 things that I've spoken about today. Just DM me, and me and the team will get back to you.